The leaves that had fallen on the uneven pavement were crisp underfoot. So as Dottie Ellis turned onto the estate, she was extra careful not to slip. She now had another reason to take her time. Slowly she took a deep breath and blew out a long plume of frosty breath. Then she paused momentarily at the foot of the red brick steps before pulling her coat tighter around herself and staring ahead. She couldn't help it. Her stomach churned with excitement and anticipation, because she hadn't really gauged how Jimmy would react to the news. They'd never discussed the possibility, although they should have really. The house was much like her own. It was a very nondescript 3-bedroom semi-council house with the usual bay window and a wooden front door. And it was in an area of St Mary Cray that was made up of known criminal families, many of whom were related in one way or another. Jimmy Carson's home was in the middle of a street and surrounded by his friends and family. It was lucky she was Jimmy's girl, or there was no way she would have walked along that street alone. She would have been stared at, probably questioned, and then chased with sticks or metal poles. Jimmy lived with his mother and brothers, although Dottie hadn't got to know the family well. If she ever went to his house, he would whisk her upstairs, away from the others. Much like the neighbours' houses, Jimmy's was unkempt. The red brick steps were not so red now, unlike her steps at home, but only because her mother liked to keep them polished. Her mother's garden was awash with colour in the summer. Her father grew roses and hydrangeas, which he fed with pig's blood and ground-up chicken bones. But the hydrangeas were also given further treatment. He liked to add iron filings as well, so they turned blue. Jimmy's house, in contrast, had an old motor rusting away in the front garden. Where there should have been a small front lawn, there were 2 deep tyre tracks, a few broken pieces of concrete slabs, and what looked like a car engine, black with oil. She shivered, and wished she'd put on a longer jumper under her overcoat. But her Jimmy liked her wearing crop tops. He said they suited her flat tummy, which he found sexy, and she always wanted to please her Jimmy, especially now. And all she hoped and prayed for was that he would be as excited as she was with the news. She ran her hands over her middle and took a deep breath before knocking at the door. She knew someone was at home because she could hear music blaring from one of the bedrooms upstairs. Then she heard Ginty's voice. "Turn that fucking racket off! I can't hear myself bloody think!" The door flew open, and there, larger than life, with her arms folded under her huge bosoms, and with her long black ponytail and a row of loop earrings in each ear, was Jimmy's mother, Jimmy Carson. Her stare alone made Dottie shiver. "Good morning, Mrs. Carson," she smiled, hoping the woman would invite her in. However, Ginty merely leaned against the door frame and looked her up and down. "What are you doing here, Dottie? And at this hour? Jimmy ain't in." It was 9 o'clock in the morning, and she knew that Jimmy would never be out of his bed before 10 o'clock. She desperately wanted to catch him before he went out, but only because they hadn't seen much of each other in the last few weeks. He said he'd been busy. "Oh, do you know where he is?" Before Ginty answered, the music began blaring again. She craned her neck and bellowed up the stairs. "I said turn that fucking music off!" "All right, mother," came the man's voice, the moment the music was turned off. "You don't have to shout." "I do if I'm to be heard over that shit you call fucking music." Ginty looked back at Dottie. "Listen, girl." She lowered her voice and softened her tone. "Do yourself a favour, right? And forget about our Jimmy." Those words cut Dottie in half. She loved Jimmy with all her heart, and she'd even lied to her parents to see him. "But—" "No fucking buts, Dottie. I know your family." She smiled gently. "They're a good lot. You know what I mean. They work hard, speak nice, and go to the Baptist church on a Sunday." "But I'm not like them, Mrs. Carson. I'm not. Really, I'm not. I don't even go to church. If you didn't know already, I love Jimmy.